I still remember the moment, as if it just happened. I was standing by the office coffee machine, adding a dash of oat milk to my morning blend when Ryan, the new CEO and son of the company's founder, walked into the break room. He didn't greet me. He didn't smile. He just looked at me like I was part of the furniture. He decided to throw out, "Lily, I need to see you in my office." Now, it wasn't a request I had been with the company for nearly 11 years. In that time, I had built the client services department from scratch, negotiated over 100 contracts, and trained most of the team that now sat just outside his office door. But none of that mattered to Ryan. His father, Mr. Cole, had built the company with grit and loyalty. Ryan inherited the title and apparently thought it gave him the right to play God. I followed him, trying to shake off the tension building in my chest. "He didn't even sit down. You're fired," he said, voice flat, emotionless. "We don't need lazy people like you dragging this place down." I blinked at first. I thought it was some kind of twisted joke. "Excuse me, you heard me," he replied, casually flipping through a stack of papers like he was deciding what to have for lunch. "You can collect your things and leave effective immediately." I stared at him, stunned. My heart pounded in my ears. I wanted to shout, to defend myself, to demand an explanation. But instead, I smiled, a calm, polite, deliberate smile. "Understood," I said. "Have a nice day." Ryan, I walked out of his office with my head high, but inside, I was trembling. My teammates looked at me as I passed, sensing something was wrong. A few started to stand ready to ask questions, but I gave them a subtle shake of the head. "Don't make this harder." I packed my desk in silence. As I drove home, memories flooded my mind. 11 years. I had given this company more time than I gave my own family. Late nights, working through holidays, taking calls while holding back tears after my divorce. I gave them everything, and now I was dismissed like I was nothing. But I wasn't angry, not yet. I was curious. Why? That question haunted me all night. I barely slept. Something about the way Ryan had said it, so confidently, so carelessly, didn't sit right. The timing was strange, too. We were about to finalize one of the company's largest contracts, a deal I had spent 6 months preparing. I knew the client inside and out. I had even booked the final review meeting for that Friday, and now I was gone. Had he even looked at the contract details? The next morning, just after 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number. I let it ring, unsure if I could handle another blow, but curiosity won again. "Lily, it's Mr. Cole." The voice sent a jolt down my spine. The real CEO, the man who had hired me 11 years ago after a single interview. "I just walked into the office," he said, and I could hear the tightness in his throat. "Why the hell did you pack up and leave? What happened?" I hesitated. "Your son fired me." Silence. Then, with a sharp inhale, "What? Yesterday he said I was lazy and that I wasn't needed anymore." There was a long pause before he spoke again, this time slowly, like he was trying to stay calm. "Lily, did he read your contract?" I furrowed my brows. "What do you mean? He's supposed to finalize the Kingswell deal today, isn't he?" "Yes, we were scheduled to meet them at 11. Jesus Christ." I could hear papers rustling in the background, then a loud thud, like he'd slammed something on his desk. "Lily, your contract has a clause," he said, "one I insisted on after the last acquisition disaster. You're not just the account manager, you're the only authorized negotiator for the Kingswell deal." I froze. "He can't close the deal without you," Mr. Cole continued. "Not legally, not ethically, not even practically. That contract will fall apart unless you're there." A slow-burning realization settled in my chest. He hadn't read it. Ryan had no idea what he'd done, and that's when something inside me shifted. The betrayal still hurt, yes, but now I felt something else entirely. Control. He had pulled the trigger far too quickly, and now the gun was pointed at himself. Mr. Cole hung up without another word. I could feel his fury through the silence that followed. I sat motionless in my apartment, coffee growing cold beside me, staring at nothing in particular. He didn't know his son had fired me without even reading the contract. I leaned back on the couch and let out a quiet, bitter laugh. After 11 years, this was it. Went down. A spoiled, impulsive man-boy trying to play CEO, making decisions like they were moves in a video game. But real companies don't respond after bad calls, and this one was about to find that out the hard way. I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. Part of me wanted to get dressed and show up to the office just to watch the fallout unfold, but another part, the one that had endured years of thankless overtime and swallowed my pride more times than I could count, one wanted to let them burn. I didn't have to wait long. At 10:13 a.m., I got another call. This time it was Ryan. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, another call, this one from reception, then legal, then accounting. I stared at my phone as it buzzed nonstop, lighting up like a Christmas tree. I didn't answer a single one. The voicemail icon blinked at me, relentless. I tapped it open. "Lily. Hi, it's Ryan." His voice was strained. "Listen, there was a misunderstanding yesterday. I might have acted too fast. We need you Back today, it's urgent, please call me urgent, the word rolled around in my head like a marble in a glass. He hadn't said sorry, not once, not even in a fake corporate way. Instead, it was panic disguised as politeness. I took a sip of my cold coffee, still not moving from the couch. At 10:32, my phone buzzed again, this time a number I hadn't saved in years. Nicole, a former colleague we'd grown close back when she was in my department before she transferred to marketing. I picked up. Lily, you won't believe what's happening here, she said, her voice barely above whisper. Try me. Ryan just got chewed out by his dad, like in front of everyone. The meeting room was full. Mr. Cole walked in and slammed the Kingswell contract on the table. I raised an eyebrow. He brought the contract. Oh yeah. And he asked one question. Did you read this before firing Lily? And Ryan tried to bluff, said something about moving in a new direction and reevaluating roles. But Mr. Cole didn't buy it. He flipped to the claw. You always talked about, the one that says you're the sole negotiator on the Kingswell account. That clause was there for a reason. I know everyone knows except Ryan. She paused for a moment. I could hear office murmurs in the background. Lily, he looked pale, like ghost pale. He realized he's the reason Kingswell's about to walk. I exhaled slowly. And what did Mr. Cole say? He told him if the steel falls through, your position here becomes negotiable. I let out a breath. I hadn't realized I was holding there. It was the first crack in Ryan's armor. I don't know what you're planning, Nicole added, but whatever it is, you have the upper hand now. I ended the call with a soft thank you, then stood and looked out the window. The skyline was quiet still. I always found comfort in that, the city indifferent to human chaos going on as usual. At 11:15, another message came through, this time from Mr. Cole himself. Lily, I'm sincerely sorry for what happened. I misjudged the situation. Please come in, not just for the deal, but so we can talk privately. It was tempting, but I wasn't ready to just walk back and like nothing happened. Not yet. Ryan's mistake wasn't just about a contract. It was about respect, about trust, and about the years I had given, years that couldn't be replaced by a panicked phone call and a seat at a negotiation table. Still, something stirred inside me. I wasn't a petty person, but I wasn't weak either. I didn't want revenge. I wanted accountability. I picked up my phone and finally responded, not with a call, but a message. I'll consider returning to finalize the Kingswell deal, but only under specific conditions. I'd like to speak with Mr. Cole directly beforehand. I hit send, then I changed out of my pajamas and began to prepare. By the time I arrived at the office, it was just past noon. I didn't use the employee entrance. I walked through the main lobby like a guest, a move I knew would draw attention. Everyone knew I had been fired the day before. My return now was more than a quiet comeback. It was a statement. The receptionist stood up the moment she saw me. Miss Harris. Lily, she stammered, Mr. Cole is expecting you right this way. As I followed her down the hall, I noticed the atmosphere had changed. People looked up from their desks, conversations paused. There was a sense of quiet tension, like the building itself was holding its breath. Mr. Cole was standing at the door to his office. When I arrived, he wasn't smiling. Eli, Lily, he said, nodding. Thank you for coming. And I nodded back, but didn't extend my hand. He stepped aside, letting me walk past him into the office. It was quiet for a moment. As I took a seat across from his massive oak desk, he closed the door behind him, leaned against it, and let out a long sigh. I made a mistake, he began, a big one. I gave my son too much authority too fast. I wanted him to prove himself, but I didn't expect him to burn bridges before even learning how to build them. I stayed silent. He sat down, his voice softened. What he did to you was unprofessional, disrespectful, and frankly, it jeopardized a deal we've worked over half a year to secure. I nodded slowly. Yes, it did. I read the contract again this morning. Every word. You were given full autonomy over the Kingswell account. Legally, the client won't recognize anyone else is a representative of this company. During negotiations, that clause was put in place after the Steel Ridge debacle. I remember it well. So, do I said quietly. I was the one who managed the fallout. His eyes met mine. You didn't deserve what happened yesterday, he said, and I'd like to offer you your job back with full authority to finish the deal. Whatever conditions you need, will make them work. There was sincerity in his tone, regret too. But this wasn't just about the deal, it was about leadership, accountability, dignity. I'll return, I said, but I want everything in writing, a revised contract, clear autonomy over Kingswell, and no interference from Ryan. He nodded. Immediately done. And one more thing, I added, voice firm, this can't happen again. Not to me, not to anyone. Alongside silence followed. Then he gave me a slow, thoughtful nod. You have my word. With that, I stood. The moment I stepped out of his office, I could see Ryan standing down the hall, arms crossed, pretending to be deep in conversation with the junior executive, but his eyes locked on mine. The second I appeared, I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I walked straight past him, and I swear for a second, I saw the exact moment he realized his control was slipping by one p.m. The boardroom was ready. The Kingswell team had just arrived, and we had about 30 minutes before the official meeting. I reviewed the documents one last time, confirming all the points we had previously negotiated. Their CEO, Mr. S, was a non-nonsense man with sharp instincts. He valued trust above all, and any whiff of internal disorganization would send him running. As I placed the printed Arab translation of the final terms onto the table, I caught sight of Ryan pacing outside the glass walls of the meeting room like a caged animal. Mr. Cole stepped out to intercept him. Their muffled voices escalated quickly until Mr. Cole's hand shot up, silencing him. Ryan's face turned crimson. He looked over his shoulder at me with a mix of rage and humiliation. Then he walked away. That was the last time I saw him that day. At 1:30 sharp, Mr. S entered with his aides. I greeted him in Arabic, and his eyes lit up. He smiled, a rare gesture from him. "You remembered," he said warmly. "Respect goes a long way." The meeting began. It went flawlessly. 2 hours later, we shook hands and signed the deal. After they left, Mr. Cole approached me again. This time his face showed genuine relief. "You saved us," he said, "and I owe you more than an apology. You owe your company a leader," I replied, "one who knows the difference between power and responsibility." He didn't argue. Later that evening, as I walked to my car, the tension I'd carried for the past 48 hours finally began to lift. I had come back not as an employee, but as someone who understood her value and demanded it be recognized. But I also knew this wasn't over. Ryan might have been quiet today, but men like him don't disappear here. They retreat, and then they retaliate. By the following week, the Kingswell deal had made headlines in our industry newsletter. A breakthrough in cross-border negotiations. It read: Cole & Company secures a historic partnership with Middle Eastern distributor through tailored strategy and multilingual leadership. They didn't mention me by name, but everyone in the company knew who had sealed that deal. My inbox was flooded with quiet congratulations, internal messages from staff who had stayed silent during the storm. Some were from juniors I'd mentored years ago. Others were from managers who had once ignored me in meetings, but now praised my leadership under pressure. I appreciated their words, but I wasn't naive. I knew how quickly people shift when the wind changes direction. The mood around the office had lightened. There were smiles, laughter again. In the break room, Mr. Cole had made it clear Ryan was no longer involved in high-level decision making until further notice, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Small things began to happen. First, it was the expense reports. The reimbursement for my travel to the Kingswell meeting was delayed. Then documents I had submitted for approval were returned to me and signed without explanation. Next, an email I never sent, allegedly from my address, was flagged by it contained incorrect client information and had been forwarded to one of our overseas partners. Luckily, the partner was someone I had a good relationship with, and he reached out directly to clarify. But the mistake had already planted doubt. I reported it to our internal systems team. They said there was no sign of external hacking. The message had originated from inside the office. That's when I knew Ryan was behind it. He was no longer trying to fire me. That approach had failed. Now he wanted to make me look confident, to smear my reputation slowly, subtly, until I either quit in frustration or someone else decided I was a liability. It was classic corporate sabotage, and it wasn't the first time I'd seen it. Back at my first job fresh out of university, I worked under a director who played the same game. He wouldn't confront you directly, but he'd cut off your resources, isolate you from projects, quietly poison your name until the only option left was to disappear here. But I wasn't 22 anymore. I wasn't going to disappear. I documented everything, every missed email, every mistake that I hadn't made, every delay. I had learned the hard way that paper trails are more powerful than emotions in environments like this. I even started using a private notebook, logging times, dates, conversations, just in case. Then one afternoon, I overheard something that CNF confirmed my suspicions. I was passing the conference room when I heard Ryan's voice inside, too loud for a private discussion. "She's unstable," he said. "Since for next part, subscribe my channel and wait for next
part. Please, dear, subscribe.